Good afternoon or good morning, depending on where you're joining us today. Sorry for a little bit of a late start. We had some technical issues, but I will get us started very quickly with some quick housekeeping. First, we are recording the webinar, and the recording will be sent out to everyone that is registered. With that recording, you'll also be receiving a copy of the slide deck, as well as a certificate of attendance, and then any other resources that are referenced during the discussion today. Next, there is a Q&A box available to you. We do encourage discussion. We encourage questions. If you have any of those during the presentation today, use that Q&A box to send them in, and our team will flag them and do our best to address as many of them as we can by the end of the webinar. That's all I have. So with that, I'm going to introduce today's panelists, Sarah Haddon and Darlene Estes. Dr. Darlene Estes Del Rey serves as our Director of Strategic Partnerships. In this role, she works with existing and new partners to support their efforts in ensuring every child and every educator has access to high quality early learning experiences, education, and supports. Darlene's early childhood career expands across the public and private sectors, including Montessori, magnet schools, state-funded preschool, higher education, and state education agency work, excuse me. And before coming to Teachstone, Darlene served as the Assistant Commissioner of Early Learning with the Tennessee Department of Education, working to define, measure, and spread quality learning practices across settings and funding models. She led successful initiatives that enhanced the quality of voluntary pre-K, and she increased the numbers of children being more ready to enter kindergarten. The class observation assessment system continues to be a key lever in that work, and throughout her work at the State Education Agency, Darlene worked closely with early childhood education leaders, teachers, coaches, researchers, advocates, and policymakers, and the Head Start collaborator in the birth to 5 and the pre-K to 2nd grade spaces, with a focus on quality environments, teacher-child interactions, early literacy foundations, and inclusive best practices. So that's Darlene. Next is the lovely Sarah Haddon. Sarah has been in the field of early education for 35 years. She has held various positions, including teacher, mentor teacher, coach, researcher, and teacher educator. For the past 17 years, her work has focused specifically on helping early childhood professionals enhance the quality and responsivity of their interactions with children to improve educational outcomes. She is currently the Senior Advisor of Policy and Research at Teachstone. And in her role, she works to ensure that Teachstone's programs for improvement in ECE and K-12 education are grounded in research and delivered in ways that reflect best practices for adult learning. Sarah works with Teachstone staff and clients to help them understand the research base and consider how to use that information when designing and implementing their own professional development programs. Sarah has had the privilege of traveling to Latin America, the Middle East, Asia, Australia, and Europe to teach people about the class and the power of interactions to change children's lives. Prior to joining Teachstone, Sarah worked on the development and implementation of both My Teaching Partner, known as MTP, and the National Center for Research on Early Childhood Education, two large studies which are two large studies at the University of Virginia that used class as the basis for professional development. Sarah came to Teachstone because of Teachstone's mission to ensure that all children have access to high quality teaching. So with that, I will hand the floor over to Darlene to get us started with a quick poll.
You're muted, Darlene.
Hey, Darlene.
Sorry. So we just kind of want to find out who's with us. And I think we have a slide to show us for our quick poll. So tell us who you are today joining. Are you a program administrator, school leader, district leader, state leader, coach, or teacher? We'll give you a few seconds and then we will close out the poll. Let's see. Great. Here's our results. So it looks like we have 20% joining as a school or program administrators, leaders, 1% district leader. We don't have any state leaders here today. They may join later on the recording. 33% coaches and 46% teachers. So welcome all. Thanks for doing that quick poll with us. And Sarah, I think I'm handing it off to you next.
Yes, you are. So welcome everybody, and it's really nice to see you all. And I am always really pleased and happy to see coaches and teachers on our calls, because we know that you are directly working with children each and every day. So thank you all for what you do. So let's see. Yeah, thank you. Next slide. Yes, that's where we are. And so for those of you who are new to CLASS, it stands for the Classroom Assessment Scoring System. The CLASS measures the quality of teacher-child interactions in the classroom and is a part of a continuous quality improvement system. CLASS has been widely adopted across the country. It's used by the Office of Head Start for monitoring, and it's named in 23 states' quality rating improvement systems. The purpose of this webinar is to introduce you to CLASS and give you a sense of how your organization might begin to use CLASS to improve education where you are. Next slide, please. Okay, and we are going to start with a short video clip from a woman named Dominique McCain. She is formerly of Dallas Intermediate School District, which did and is continuing to do a large-scale CLASS implementation pre-K through third grade. She's currently with Commit Partnership in Dallas, which is an organization that's focused on ensuring that all children have access to quality education. Gloria, if you would start that, please.
I describe CLASS as the how of an educator's job. So often educators are told the what of their job through a variety of evaluations, a variety of observations, but very seldomly does anyone get granular enough to help them understand immediate action they can take to transform what's happening in their classroom. CLASS does that. From the domains down to the dimensions, down to the indicators, down to the behavioral markers. It teaches and gives a very clear path for educators of how to do their job. So to me, CLASS is the how of an educator's job.
Okay. Thank you, Gloria. And we just really like Dominique's statement. It really seems to capture in a nice way what we think about in terms of CLASS. And so now let's spend a minute reflecting. And I'm going to have Darlene start, but what I'm asking all of you to do is think back to a favorite teacher. Think back to a teacher who made a huge impact in your life. What was it that made them so special? What was it that had them be such an influential person for you? And Darlene, I thought I'd ask you first while people think about it.
All right.
Please.
So I would definitely have to say it was my first grade teacher, Lita Sackett. And it's really interesting because as I think back to how many years ago that was, I won't tell you my age, but just thinking back to how long ago, but that's the first thing that pops up to me is who was my first grade teacher. And I cannot tell you what exactly she taught me, but I can tell you she's my favorite because I can remember how I felt when I was with her and how whatever she did, I felt welcomed, I felt comfortable, I felt like she believed in me and that she helped me be the best me. And that's what I remember and carry with me.
Yeah, so what you're basically saying, Darlene, is that Miss Sackett made a personal connection with you. She helped you feel welcome. Probably she made you feel safe. I would also guess, although you might not have realized it in first grade, but that she was also probably challenging you to think. And that's really, all of those things are the heart of great teaching. And that's the kind of thing that we measure with CLASS. CLASS is designed to help every teacher change the life of the children in their classrooms through the power of interactions. Interactions with kids are why we go to work every day, and they're key to children's learning. There are a lot of you on here, so I can't ask all of you to share, but I'm guessing you may have some similar thoughts or experiences. Okay, yeah, thank you. So, I've told you a little bit about what CLASS is. It is the most evidence-based and widely used continuous quality improvement for teaching in early childhood education. We do have multiple age levels of the class, but most of the work we do is in the birth through age 5 arena. And we know that all children deserve experiences that will help them thrive in school. And we also, at this point, have decades of research that demonstrate that one of the most critical factors supporting children's positive development in early years is the daily interactions that they have with adults. They are learning within the context of these interactions. This means that the interactions children have, say from infancy to elementary school and beyond, are critical to the development of their academic, language, social, emotional, cognitive, and self-regulatory development. So to put it in a nutshell, interactions between teachers and children are the main drivers of development and learning. And that's what we're talking about here. All right, and so just to give you a little bit of sense, if you're new to class, about how it works, is that the class is divided up into broad areas, domains, which Dominique mentioned, and then within each domain there are dimensions, which get a little bit more granular, and then we have indicators and behavioral markers that really help us drill down to look specifically at teacher-child interactions. And while there are multiple age levels of class, they're really organized around these 3 guiding domains: the emotional support, which you'll see is the heart. The emotional support is what teachers do to make children feel welcome and safe in school, so that they are willing to take those academic and social risks, and also that they're just comfortable and want to come to school. Classroom organization, you'll see we've got the little gears there, and that's really how teachers manage children's time, attention, and behavior in the classroom, because we all know, and I believe we've got 48% of you as teachers, you all know that that's critical. Children have, you work hard to engage children, you work hard to teach them the expectations of the classroom, and and you also work hard just to make sure that they have something interesting to do all the time. So that's our second domain. And then our third domain is instructional support. And you'll see it's got some little thought bubbles, so that probably helps you think a little bit about what that is too. When we think about instructional support, we think about what teachers do to stimulate language, to stimulate higher order thinking skills, and also to provide feedback to children that gets them thinking even a little bit more. It moves beyond saying, yes, very good, that's right, to, yeah, you're right, and here's why. And that just helps expand children's thinking as well. Next slide, Gloria. All right, and on an earlier slide, I mentioned the fact that CLASS is the most widely researched tool on interactions. The research behind what we now see as CLASS started way back, almost actually about 30 years ago, and we have at this point between 300 and 400 studies that have published studies that have used CLASS, and then numerous program evaluations from sites not only across our country but across the world, where CLASS is now being used in 43 countries. So thinking about emotional support, what we're looking at here is when children are in classrooms with higher emotional support scores, we see higher social competence. And we all know how critical that is. We see decreased conflict with teachers, We see fewer problem behaviors. We see kids who are better able to control their behavior, and their executive functioning skills are better. And we also see higher achievement in language and literacy. I can tell you that we have, for those of you who want to dig in a little bit deeper, we have a research summary, we have an outcomes paper, and we also have a document that talks about how class supports children who come from diverse backgrounds. And one of my colleagues is going to pop all of those into the chat box so that if you're interested in looking at it a little bit more, you'll have them available to you. Okay. And then classroom organization is also associated with social emotional development, also associated with fewer conflicts with teachers, decreased behavior problems, and once again, improved academic outcomes, which in many ways makes sense, because if children know what to do and expectations are clear, then they're having more time to learn. Okay. Next slide, please. And then finally, I want to talk about instructional support, because it's also very important. We see growth in academic skills, specifically language, literacy, and math. So for example, we see receptive vocabulary, print knowledge, early writing skills, phonological awareness, letter word identification. We see gains in early mathematics, specifically in early numeracy skills, and also applied math problems. Once again, we're seeing a link to better executive functioning skills, greater behavioral competence, and increased social competence. And so if you look across, we're really seeing some pretty important social, academic, and social emotional behavioral outcomes for children who are in classrooms with higher class scores. And on that note, I'm going to pass it over to Darlene, who's going to talk a little bit about how you might start your own journey using class.
Great, thanks, Sarah. And thank you for that great introduction to class and high quality interactions. And so we're going to talk now about the class system that enables a journey of continuous improvement of interactions that are proven to drive children's development. So on the slide, you'll notice that there are 3 arrows kind of to help you along your journey. This doesn't mean that there's specific times for those things to take place, but there's a sequence that's really important to have that focus, measure, and improve framework to guide you on your continuous journey. So at a high level, what are these 3 steps along the way? So when you're focused in that focused step, you're really thinking about your organization and focusing them on the importance of high quality interactions. It's having this organizational focus. Everyone's thinking about interactions and how we can improve those high quality interactions. The next one is measure. So measure the quality of your program's interactions on an ongoing basis to improve your improvement or to inform your improvement efforts. So not just a one time that you'll measure it. You want to have this continuous, like, how's it going? Here's something that I can do to increase that. Or this is going really well. I'm going to keep doing that. So just kind of data really is important along the way, not just at the beginning or the end of a journey, but just to kind of always see data as something that's relevant to my everyday work is so important. And then the improve piece is really about thinking about your improving program quality by providing data-driven PD and coaching. So kind of go back to the focus for a second. It's like we're all focused on the same thing. We're thinking about those high quality interactions, and then we have to have a way to see how we're doing along the way. And then once we know how we're doing, we can kind of focus on how can we improve quality? What can we do in professional development and coaching that's targeted to what we need and can build upon our strengths? And if you notice the icon on the side, it's this continuous process. And so we want to hone in on that it's about getting better at getting better and building on the strengths you already have. And interactions are something that are at the heart of teaching. And as teachers, they do really well with, you already interact so well with children every day. And it's something that you can have as a great focus. Next slide, Gloria. So next we'll unpack kind of each one of these steps along your journey, beginning with the focus. And so under the focus, what are we trying to do? First and foremost, it is really important to build leader readiness and establish a clear vision of quality. It's so important to have leadership support, leadership understanding, and that they are really holding the whole initiative together and providing those supports along the way. So often teachers say that the impact that they see in their classroom is a result of great leadership support. So having a focus is so important with building leader readiness. And next, you want to really create excitement and buy-in across the organization, that everyone's really excited about what we can do with high quality interactions and how it's going to make a difference in our program and what's the impact we want to see and how together we can have such a collective impact. And then we are also focused on increasing the confidence and support as you start in a new improvement journey or you continue your journey, because remember, it's continuous. So we'll go to the next slide and we'll unpack this a little bit deeper and look at the resources and product support that are available as you're in this focused part of your journey. So as you think about building leader readiness and establishing a clear vision of quality, there is an incredible course that really helps leaders, that's leader focused. It's designed for the busy leader. It's called the Class Primer for Leaders. And this is a great opportunity for leaders to focus on, like, how do I plan and how do I support for class implementation, but it also is an opportunity to connect with other leaders who are doing the same work. And I cannot say enough about joining the class community and what an amazing opportunity that is for leaders to network and connect with others who they can share best practices, they can talk about lessons learned or whatever is on their mind about what they want to talk about along their way of implementing class and doing it really well and driving success. So those are some really key things that would help you along that space. And then as you're thinking about creating excitement and buy-in across the organization, like the class primer for leaders is so good for leaders. Oh my goodness, the class primer for teachers is a wonderful way for teachers to get to know, first of all, what the class tool is and how it really complements what they're doing in the classroom, but also for them to really have a better understanding. And we have so many teachers with us today of how that really does, the components of class really supports children's development and what you're already doing in the classroom and how it connects to the other things that you have going on. So it's a great way to kick off an initiative to really get teachers early on to understand what this is all about. So often teachers will say that they were the last ones to know or to learn about something really great happening. And so bringing teachers in early on is critically important, and teachers love to learn, and they're all about, driving success too. So glad to see so many of you here today. And then there's this wonderful option to have a custom events hosted by Teachstone, in which you can really co-brand and co-develop it as a kickoff to your initiative. You can have teachers engage with and have a real genuine, authentic class experience that's meant to build excitement, community, and engagement around having class and using it as this continuous quality improvement focus. Also, I would say that one of my favorites is the curricula crosswalks that are available, because so often as we start off on a journey where we have so many things as teachers to think about, like I'm doing this and I have to think about curriculum and I have to think about these other things that are happening and I'm asked to do. So how does class fit so well into my curriculum and what I'm already doing? So that's a wonderful tool to see, and also to see how it is a nice fit. Interactions really do serve as a connector of all those things. And as you're thinking about increasing confidence and support and starting your improvement journey, this is also, I can't help but get excited, but my Teachstone video library is just a wealth of resources of just being able to see great teaching in action. What do high quality interactions look like in real classrooms with real teachers across different settings? Because teachers learn best by seeing other teachers in action. And so just having that ability to do that, it can't but only build such excitement and let teachers feel supported in their work. And then there's a wealth of other class support resources that are available to support you as well in thinking about even some literacy toolkits and some other social emotional kits that are available. You are also able to engage in a class community, just like the leaders, and you can have that networking. You yourself as a teacher can share best practices and learn from others. So I love that because you don't have to wait for a webinar to be available. You don't have to wait or hope you get to go to a conference. You can engage with others all the time through that class community and have access to those resources. So let's move to the next component. I'm sorry, Sarah, did you want to jump in there? It looked like you had a wonderful thought.
I wanted to say thank you for noticing. I wanted to say something about the class community because in addition to having class experts on hand to answer questions, you've got your colleagues, your fellow teachers, your fellow coaches, and the ideas that people gain from one another are just really incredible. And it's always a pleasure to read through my class learning community digest every day and to see how well colleagues are supporting one another in the classroom. And it doesn't have to, the questions aren't always about class. Sometimes they're about how long children should nap, or something about family engagement, things that class doesn't measure, but the teachers and the members are there for each other. So
I love that. You're adding that for sure. And sometimes you don't have a question until you see something somebody else is doing. And so it's a great way to keep the learning going. So thank you for adding that. So next slide, Gloria. Thank you. So now that you've kind of had that focus step, you've kind of increased confidence, you've provided support, we have a focus on interactions. The next step is really thinking about measure. And so what are we doing here is we're really focused on how we, like I said, we really use that data to inform us along the way so we can see how we're doing, and we can really kind of tell the story of our improvement progress as we go. So you're monitoring program quality and improvement progress. You have a way to report on program quality, improvement progress, and make data-driven decisions. And you can maintain data confidence and reliability. And as teachers across a state or an organization, I know that they are really interested in owning their own data. Like so many times they say, like, I want my data. Like what's happening in my classroom? I want to make improvements based on my data as well as my school data, as well as my state data. So having data along the way really helps teachers and leaders own the data and make those decisions that are based on what you need and what your children need. And I love that about this measure component. So we'll go to the next slide and look at the resources and supports available under measure. So as you monitor program quality and improvement progress, there's absolutely class observation training available, in which this really allows you to have observers who are trained. They're reliable to administer the tool, like, and measure the interactions that are happening. You get reliable data, and you have real-time data. And I think the best part is the feedback you get as well, so that you can have that feedback to drive your improvements and see that. So there is a live class observation available. I believe there's other options for getting that class observation training as well, and Sarah may chime in with some of those opportunities as well. And there are also live observation services from Teachstone. And so as you're building your own capacity, you might say, we don't have any folks yet that can actually go out and do some class observation training because we're just really early in our journey here. And so you might want to take advantage of the live observation services that Teachstone provides, where they have observers who could come out and conduct those observations. And you might say, like, why would that be important if we're just getting started in our journey? And like, we haven't made any improvements yet, so we don't want to measure yet. And I can tell you from my experience that it is so advantageous to actually get some baseline data in the beginning, so that then you can really show where you've grown from. So instead of being afraid of getting that data early, it's actually pretty exciting to look back and see where you began and to see the growth that you've had since then. And so I don't know, Sarah, if you wanted to add anything there about the class observation training or live observation services.
Two quick things. One is right now we are doing class trainings virtually, so and it's not all on Zoom. There's some work that you can do on your own so that you don't have to stare at a Zoom screen all day long. So we've got that. And in terms of live observations, we also have the capacity, if you've videotaped classrooms to also do class observations on videotape. So.
Great. And I will say from my previous role as being a state leader, I was grateful to have the opportunity to actually become a class observer myself, even though I knew I wasn't going to go and do the class observations. Just the knowledge I gained about the tool and how it all works and what the teachers would experience when they had observers come in really helped us keep that focus on what we were doing as an organization and how better to support teachers, coaches, and administrators. So I would say that was a wonderful opportunity too. Like sometimes you gain so much more than you thought you would. So I'm definitely can testify to that. And as you think about reporting on program quality, improvement, progress, and making data-driven decisions, this is an amazing package to be aware of, the My Teachstone measurement and reporting suite, because often you have your data, but so often you're like, okay, it'd be nice if I could have this in some kind of report. Could I see it? What is my data telling me? And how do I interpret the data? And how can I use this? And how can I share what my data is saying with others? And so there's already this wonderful suite of resources that can help you do that. And then you can take that and then you can look at the data and say, like, what then do we want to do next? Which that's so important to make sure that we're always going back to our data. And then as you think about maintaining data confidence and reliability, there's an opportunity for observer calibration as well as double coding. And I know Sarah is an expert in this space as well, so I will let her chime in if she'd like to say anything extra about that and how that might work.
Yes, thank you, Darlene. Observer calibration is essentially when a certified class observer watches a video that has been coded by class experts, and then they can measure how they are coding against the experts. And it's really important because observing with class is pretty complex and people can drift and organizations can drift in the same direction. So it's good to keep everybody honest, so to speak. And double coding is when two people go out and they stand side by side and they observe the same things, and then they do the coding, and we do comparison coding to make sure again that people are staying true. And organizations can do double coding within their own organization, but it's also a great idea to have an external expert periodically come on and also check.
Great, thanks for that, Sarah. And we're ready for the next slide. Gloria, and we're going to next look at the improve step of our journey. And so as we look at improving, what are we focused on here is strengthening our overall program quality with organization PD opportunities. And I think about that's an advantage, because once you have that data from the measure step, then you can really have this targeted singular focus on what it is that we need to do together collectively to improve quality. Versus, I know many teachers are on here, so I can say this, like, how often have you gone to staff development and maybe there was some pieces that were helpful, you knew some things, which is okay, right? Because it's hard to know where everyone's at, but how powerful it really is when you could have that data, you had that singular focus, that you're all really focused on these high quality interactions, you have data to tell you how you're doing, and then you can use that data then to drive the improvements to say, what professional development is really needed and how can we support our teachers in their journey. And so that's so empowering. And then really thinking about increasing your coaching capacity and effectiveness to help support teachers, not just in what professional development they actually might attend or receive, but somebody that can be there to actually be a thought partner to help them look at their own teaching and reflect on that, and whether they have a live coach or they take advantage of some of the other services that we have through like My Coach Connect and some of the other pieces that we have here at Teachstone that can help those who might not have access to a live person coach in their organization. And then supporting individual teacher development and growth. There are so many professional development offerings that we have here at Teachstone, and thinking about interactions are at the heart of teaching and are at the heart of healing. And we know that we've been impacted by so many things in our lives, and so we know that interactions matter, and we have so many professional development opportunities here at Teachstone to support you along your way as we think about interactions being at the center of what our data has shown us. And Sarah, I'm going to let you jump in and see if you had any thoughts around just like the PD opportunities or increasing coaching capacity.
Yes, I probably do. Because when you were thinking about strengthening, when you're talking about strengthening overall program quality, one of the things we like to think from a strength-based and growth mindset model. And one of the things that I've seen a lot in class data is that because a class observer comes in and they observe for 2 hours, so they're going to see a variety of different activities and types of lessons. And it could be that teachers, there are times when they are just, they're just easier for them to have those great interactions with the kids, whether it's pushing their thinking skills or being sensitive to children's needs. And so one of the things that we can do is also celebrate those areas and then work with teachers, coaches can work with teachers and say, look how well this is happening during this time. Let's talk about how you can do this more often. What are some other ways you can embed these kinds of interactions into other activities so children are getting a more consistent experience to the high quality interactions that we're seeing? So.
Great, thank you for that. And we encourage you, like we will definitely give you links to many of the professional development opportunities. We have a new opportunity that is freshly coming out, banking time, investing in relationships, that we want you to really go and check out. And we'll provide some links to that as well as we think about trying to be more intentional in how we interact with children and making sure we get to all children. So definitely wanted to say that. And so here on this slide, you can see like how this all fits with the improve, that we do have class professional development training. It's all powered by class professional development, and the coaching certifications, you know, like it's important not only to support teachers in their professional growth, but also to support coaches in their professional development as well, to help them and become better coaches and to do what they do better and to better serve their teachers as well. And so there's lots of coaching opportunities. So if you're a coach who's joined us today, definitely check out what's available and how those resources can be beneficial to your organization as a whole. And then too, just thinking about the wealth of My Teachstone learning resources that are available, and that you don't have to wait again to say like, I hope that conference is coming, I hope that resource is available, how can I access it? So you would have access to that in this improved step along the way. So we'll go to the next slide, Gloria. And so now you might be wondering, you've heard from Sarah from the beginning what class is. We've spent a little bit of time talking about how this framework of focus, measure, and improve kind of fit into the journey. But you might be wondering like, okay, like, so is there like some key to success? And what would that be? And so I'm going to just share just from my own experience working in the state of Tennessee. If I had to bubble up one important key to success, I would say that definitely was having this single focus and aligned vision on and focus on high quality interactions from the state organization level down to the district level to coaches to teachers, where we all were sort of like rowing in the same direction with the same focus. It allowed us to talk the same language and to set the same goals and mostly to see the same growth across programs. Like everyone was at different places in their growth, but we saw consistent growth. And so whatever that growth looked like for each program, everyone definitely has consistent growth. And I would say class, using it as a system as well as a powerful tool, enabled us for the first time in our state-funded pre-K to have a common language to talk about quality, a common lens to look at quality through that lens of interactions. And we were able to talk about our growth in a way we've never been able to do before. And we had a story to tell. We had the data to support it. So having baseline data in the beginning and then data along the way was really a key to the success, and making sure that you don't miss one of those pieces, not just to have focus and leave out measure and improve. I don't think we would have seen the success we did. So I would say, you know, like you may follow it at different lengths of time, like you might be in the focus at different time lengths, but having all three pieces in place is also very key. And Sarah is going to share some other pieces that she might say, what's the key to success?
Yeah. I would say the key to success, Darlene, and to everybody else who's on, is establishing buy-in or working to get buy-in. It's so important. As a teacher, someone's coming in to look at you and you want to know what they're looking at. It's important. So you need to work to create buy-in. You also need to develop an infrastructure for data collection. You need to make sure that you have people who can go out, who can be trained, who can collect the data, that you have a system for the data to flow into, that you have a way for the data to be analyzed and reported. Those are just really critical, and without those, it's really tough for things to happen. And I can think, I've been a bystander and sometimes a participant in a number of really large-scale implementations, and I can think of one state where they just went around the state and they had sessions where they just talked about class and this is what they were going to be doing, and then they explained it so that everybody had the opportunity to have some kind of an introduction to class. They also the first year that they collected data, it was a pilot year. So everybody was learning together. And then they had that baseline data, and then they used it to inform their professional development. And so different areas or teachers were getting different forms of PD based on what they needed. And then they would report the data, they'd share it so that people understood what it looked like. They continued to support it. They've done listening sessions so they can hear back from teachers and administrators to get a sense of people's experience with it. And then they use that data to make some changes. So to me, that's kind of the perfect implementation. And I can also say that one of the worst implementations I've seen was not at the state level, but it was at a very large city. It was in a very large city, and teachers were gathered together right before school started, and they had an administrator who said, "Class is coming, you'd better get ready." It wasn't good, and a lot of teachers were in an uproar. They didn't know what class was. They really didn't have the opportunity to learn about class, so they were understandably quite upset about how about this dictate, like it's coming and you'd better be ready. And then the other thing that this large metropolitan district did that wasn't great was that they collected the class data, but then they broke teachers up into groups based on their class scores. And it was very widely known that if you had higher class scores, you did this. If you had the worst class scores, you did this. And then if you were in the middle, you did this. And it was required. It was you need to do it. And I don't need to tell any of the people on this call because everyone here is an educator. It's just not the way to do it.
So I think that what we kind of heard from the success examples and maybe from the lessons learned example as well is that really there's some critical pieces to make sure that to include in the journey and to keep it continuous as well, with feedback loops from teachers as well in that, administrators, and again having everyone have a journey that's mapped out that also allows the improvement to have time to take place, but also for that buy-in and excitement and just kind of that understanding of the tool and also what kinds of supports are there. Because I know that also when you start new initiatives, folks are always like think that, is this the only training I'm going to get? Is this the only support I'm going to have? And so having it as a system of just a system of improvement with supports along the way, resources to go to, others to learn from when we talk about having a community of educators to exchange with is super important. So you might also be wondering now, like, well, Okay, we've heard a lot here. So what about specifically for me? What would be my pathway if I'm a teacher, I'm a coach or a leader? Well, we're glad you are wondering that, because Sarah is going to take the next few minutes to talk to us about what that might look like as seeing class in action.
Yes. Thank you, Darlene. And one thing that also occurred to me that's really important for success of an implementation is to help teachers recognize that the class isn't something new. It's not an add-on. The class works with all curriculum, which is partly why we like those curricular crosswalks that Darlene mentioned. But also, class really measures what good teachers do every day in their classroom, and helping teachers understand that when you do this, this is good teaching, this is an effective interaction, so that it's, because I remember in my years in the classroom of thinking, oh no, one more thing coming down the pike. Don't they know how hard I work? Don't they know how busy I am? Don't they know blah, 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 blah. And so class isn't something added on. The authors of class didn't invent good teaching. What they did is they watched good teaching and figured out ways to quantify it, and gave us a vocabulary so we can all talk about it together. And now thank you, Gloria, for moving on to the next slide for me. So I've got 3 slides here. One is from a teacher view, one is from a coach view, and then one is from an observer view. And actually, Gloria, would you go back 1 slide to the teacher? Yeah. And so the first thing we've talked about it, learn about class and quality interactions. It's just, we know that that's a good idea. Seeing interactions in real classrooms, that's where the video library on my Teachstone works. We've got some research from a number of years ago where we found that teachers who watched more video exemplars of effective teaching improved their interactions with their kids more than teachers who did not. We also talk about formal and informal observations. Those formal observations are when you get your baseline data, but informal observations are also really useful just to check in. If teachers are working on something, you want to get a check-in and essentially take a pulse and like, wow, yeah, this is great. Look at how you're doing. The PD, because class measures what teachers are doing in their classrooms every day, PD is targeted on what teachers do every day, which is great. Our coaching is always a strength-based model, helping teachers identify strengths and build on those areas for growth. And then we do have lots of, through the My Teachstone platform, a lot of self-study opportunities. We have lots of courses and videos and online things that you can do. We also, and Darlene will talk about this briefly, we also have a lot of good information in terms of free resources for teachers. Okay, now you can move on to the coach, please. Okay, and so once again, you're seeing basically the same icons. There's a little bit of difference, but one of the things that coaches can do is, based on teachers' interests, they can find videos for them and ask them to watch those videos, and can even go onto an online platform and get feedback and ask questions of teachers about, what did you see? What do you think about that? And so that's really helpful. It is important as a coach that you do understand class, you understand what the observation and scoring process looks like. Darlene talked about how important it was for her as an administrator, as a coach. Even if you won't do formal observations, it's pretty important information to have. Darlene also mentioned using the data, and that's what you should be doing with any class observations, is just look at that data and figure out just where to go next. We do have programs where you can certify in class master coaching. We also are on our own, provide data-driven coaching. And then again, I think I mentioned this before, you can identify specific videos, but you can also say, watch this short course, read this read this blog, read this ebook. This is really going to help you, and talk with teachers about that. And then finally, for the observer, please, Gloria, thank you. And so observers, first of all, you have to be a certified reliable observer, which, as Darlene mentioned, we do have a training for that. Once this happens, you can observe with class. But what we can also say is that the class learning community and the videos we have are also really important for observers, because there are some things that maybe are a little fuzzy in your mind, because the class training is super intense. I know I've trained hundreds of people. It's really intense. I'm always exhausted, and I know what I'm talking about. But you can go in and you can look and say, I don't really understand what a feedback loop is, or I don't understand what it means to contingently respond. Well, you can look through and find a video that talks about feedback loops or contingent responding to hone your class skills. As an observer, you are collecting that data. We mentioned data integrity before, so that calibration, that double coding, observers have to recertify annually to ensure that they are still using their class lens, which helps maintain that the reliability and validity of your data. And another thing to think about in terms of maintaining data integrity is to make sure that you have a well thought out system for how you're going to collect data, and that you have a protocol that is very clear and consistent for every observer. All those things are important. We do have, because we've produced an awful lot of materials over the years, but we have a series of webinars on setting up, let's see, I actually wrote it down. We have one on developing an infrastructure for collecting data. We have another one on how to set up a data collection protocol. And we have a third on best practices for reporting class data, which includes sample reports that you might see from my Teachstone. So we have a lot of, so those are webinars, but there are also guidance documents for each of those that can be helpful if you're, depending on where you are in your journey. I think I can talk about this slide, or were you going to talk about this slide, Darlene?
You can go ahead, Sarah, it's fine.
Okay, well, as you know, we are sharing lots of resources with you, and we've talked up the class learning community, but we have discussion groups, blogs, video blogs, ebooks. We have an awful lot of material because we are really committed to ensuring that people who use class use it well, because the outcomes when class is done well are just so great for the impact on children and on teachers too. We have some research that shows that when teachers go through class-based coaching, that they feel a little bit more effective. In fact, some feel a lot more effective, but the self-efficacy increases too. So just some good stuff. And then, Darlene, I think you'll talk about the next slide, our back to school series.
Yep, I think there, so we wanted to make sure that you saw this, that we have this wonderful opportunity that is free. It's a virtual series for back to school with meaningful interactions coming September 13th through the 17th. And you can attend different sessions, and you can kind of find content that works for you. And you can see that some of these sessions are about family engagement. There's strategies to support dual language learners, building relationships at center time, redirecting and reframing misbehavior, and so much more. And this is what's really exciting, is that that's infant, toddler, and pre-K, and that their sessions are also available in Spanish. So we have a link to that as well we're sharing. So be sure to spread the news about that. It's free, and I think that you'll really be happy with all those sessions, and it'll give a great back to school boost.
Darlene, also, aren't they pretty short?
They are short. So it's not like you're attending the whole week and you're like, locked down into those all day sessions, but they're bites, if you will, bite sessions that you can kind of choose as a menu sort of option of how and where you want to attend across the week, I think. So that'll be great. And then Gloria, I think we're going to go to you to kind of close us out.
I think we have time for one question if you all have a minute. It's a really good one that I wanted to make sure we answered. How do you recommend programs implement rollouts with class when the state drops the bomb that all of a sudden this is what is required immediately?
Oh, dear me. I think that's where we're, first of all, just taking advantage of a lot of those. Well, actually, I guess I would go back to the state and say, what are your resources to support us? Because in the good implementations, that's what has happened. So, for example, Louisiana uses it statewide, as does Florida. And in Florida, they set up local hubs. In Louisiana, they set up local networks. They built capacity within each of the local areas. They did introductory trainings. So that would be my first thought. But then my second thought is, if the state is not wanting to do that, is to look at some of those free resources, and if you're a coach, work with your teachers. If you're a teacher, educate yourself and your friends. Maybe start your own little PLC so that you can each break off different parts and learn about it. And obviously, if you're an administrator, see if you can lobby for some funding to help with that effort. Yeah, that's a great question.
And I
wish
would
I
say,
had a magic wand.
yeah, and I would say at the heart of it, to know beyond anything else that because it's so focused, classes focused on interactions, it's what teachers are already doing. And so it's a way to improve on that. And so as I think about if I was given some other initiative that just was kind of put on me without knowing what or where to start, I would have at least the assurance, and I want to give you some confidence here, that at least this is based on interactions, things that you do well already at, and can definitely be a driver in the improvement space. And like Sarah said, I would imagine also just seeking out those resources, whether they'll be provided by the state, a district level, or even what's available online through Teachstone, starting with even the wonderful free resources that are mentioned. So I would, and then reach out to us. We love to thought partner with many of you and be a support.
Yes. And Gloria, will you link the Y class ebook also when you send all this out?
Certainly, I will do so. And there is one more poll that we wanted to run. If you want more information about class and how to implement the journey, just respond to this poll here and we'll make sure to follow up with you. While you're doing that, I just want to remind everyone that you will receive the recording for this webinar and other resources within 24 hours. But that is all that we have time for today. Thank you, Sarah, and thank you, Darlene, for your time. And thank you, participants, for being with us today. Let me end this poll really quickly. Oh, people are still responding. Let me just give you a couple of seconds to get your responses in.
Okay. And I'm just going to say thank you to Gloria for leading this, and to Darlene, and also to all of you who came today.
Thank you.
All right. All right, everyone. Have a good day. Take care.
Bye.